Have you ever felt lonely but felt too ashamed to admit it? Have you ever tried to numb the loneliness with booze or Netflix or something else? Have you ever felt like there's something wrong with you, that everything in your life is perfect, but you still feel lonely? Hello and welcome to Masala Podcast. I'm Sangeeta Pillai and this is the Bad Daughter miniseries. What is a bad daughter? A bad daughter is someone who challenges patriarchy, talks about taboo topics, doesn't take no for an answer. And guess what? This season, I'm going to get more personal, even more personal than I've ever done before. Are you ready, my bad daughters?
Besharam, Badtameez, Gandhi, hi, bad beti.
In this episode, I'd like to talk about loneliness. It's something that's deeply difficult for me to talk about. So therefore, I will talk about it on the podcast. It's not just me though. Loneliness is an epidemic. So many of us feel lonely, but do not talk about it. Our lives might look very Instagrammable from the outside, but inside we might be struggling. You can be lonely in a relationship. You can be lonely in a marriage. You can be lonely sitting among friends. You can be sitting in a room full of thousands of people and still feel lonely. That's the thing about loneliness. It's so invisible. If you ever felt lonely and felt like you shouldn't feel lonely, let me tell you, you're not alone. How did it begin for me? Well, I was in Leicester Square in London, looking up at a giant billboard. And that billboard had my face on it and my podcast on it. My name was splashed across this massive screen. A week before, Rihanna was on that billboard, and there I was now. But then I went home and I realized that there was no one I could call to tell them about this massive moment that had happened in my life. That I was lonely, deeply lonely. Loneliness is not the sudden crash of a wave. It seeps in quietly. It is a slow, quiet fade. It makes the world seem distant, separated from you by a thin, clear pane of glass. It taps insistently on your window at 2 a.m., asking to be paid attention to. You go about your day, a flurry of meetings, coffees with friends, dinners with distant acquaintances, but feeling disconnected, untethered from the world you're walking in. You say the right words, you nod at the appropriate places, but through it all, you feel like you're shut inside a glass bubble. It is a strange, dragging weight, this thing called loneliness. Like carrying a beautiful story with no one to tell it to. Like noticing the pink roses bloom in the street where you live, but no one to share it with. Like listening to a song in the distance, the words so muffled that you cannot hear the words. I know that I'm not alone in feeling lonely. Here are some stats that I picked up. Almost a quarter of people globally feeling lonely. I also read, and this surprised me, that those between the ages of 16 and 24 feel lonely often or always. I come from a different generation, and this really surprises me. And if you're a woman, you're likely to feel far more lonely than men. And it gets worse. If you have a physical or mental health diagnosis, you're 3 times more likely to be chronically lonely. But there's another kind of loneliness that I want to talk about, something that I experienced. When you change a lot, when you go through a transformation or a grief or some sort of massive change, suddenly the places you used to go, the conversations you used to have, the people you used to hang out with, it no longer fulfills you in the same way. I decided to dig a little deeper, and I found that loneliness has a massive impact on the world, on all of us. It's as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to the World Health Organization. 15. Loneliness can lead to loads of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, stress, which again in turn increases issues like heart attack, stroke. Then there's the cognitive effect. If you're lonely for long periods of time, it can lead to cognitive decline. So especially in older people, if they're alone a long time, it just gets worse. So as humans, when we don't really connect with each other, with our groups, with our peers, it affects every part of us, our mind, our body, and society at large. I want to talk about the price that I paid. So I grew, I changed, I did a lot of spiritual work. But then the person I became didn't really fit into the spaces that I used to fit in. Old friends didn't like me standing up for myself. And things just didn't fit like they used to. And I had a period of grief where I had to sit with it and accept it. And then came the shift. I started to see new connections, new ways for me to be friends with new types of people. So that's what I did. So while it was painful when the old friendships dissolved, when the old relationships no longer worked, I knew that what was coming would be good for me, that I needed to change, that I needed to evolve. There were times when I questioned myself, what was wrong with me? I now know there was nothing wrong with me. It was just me shifting and evolving and finding my way into new places and relationships and people. So what did I do? Started from scratch. First, I had to be really, really comfortable being alone. It was painful, wasn't easy. But then I started to explore new avenues, meet new people, try new experiences. And now the loneliness doesn't feel quite so lonely anymore. I got more comfortable going on holiday on my own, going to the theatre on my own, going to art on my own. And that was part of the process. Slowly but surely, a new circle is forming around me. Those that see me and love me for who I am. Loneliness is not about being on your own. You can be surrounded by people in a busy, roaring party and still feel lonely. You can feel isolated even in the biggest festival or gathering. You can be on your own and still never be lonely. You can be in a relationship and always feel lonely. Like walking hand in hand with someone and realizing that the other person is miles away in their own world. Like sleeping next to a warm body and still feeling the chilling space between your souls. The silence of loneliness is not comfortable. It is heavy, dense with things unsaid, feelings unshared. Loneliness is how you feel inside of you when you connect with the outside world. So what can we do about this? I have a few little tips. First, accept that the old ways may not work anymore. If grief comes up, sit with it. It's okay. Lose the shame that there's something wrong with you. This is what I find over and over again with loneliness. People are ashamed to talk about it. I was ashamed to talk about it. Allow new ways of thinking, new places, new people to come into your life. Maybe people you wouldn't have hung out with before. I'd love to read an extract from my book, Bad Daughter, which you can buy. This was written when I was coming back from California on what was meant to be one of my career highlights at University of California, Berkeley. I looked down at myself. I'm sitting in a cramped airline seat. Its blue fabric dulled by the many bums that have perched here before me. I clip on my seatbelt, the strap cutting into my stomach. My chest hurts, filled with the sobs that I'm determined not to let out. I'm on United Airlines flight UA901 from San Francisco to London, heading home after what was meant to be one of my career highlights. This was the stuff of my feminist activist dreams. I'd spent the past week swanning around the University of California, Berkeley campus, having been invited to deliver a series of workshops and record a podcast with their South Asian students. The gentle Californian sun warmed my bones as I sat among passionate young women, their brown eyes shining as I led several workshops, talking about the pain of menstruation, the agony of feeling like their brown bodies weren't white enough, the extraordinary power of their orgasms. All week long, I had felt amazing. Yes, I was creating the future of South Asian womanhood. I had never imagined, as a young girl growing up in Mumbai's slums, that one day young American South Asian women at one of the world's most prestigious universities would look up to me as a South Asian feminist icon. I was on a high. I was feeling fantastic. Until I got a phone call from my brother. Dad died last night. 4 words that unleashed a tsunami of grief. My father had been ill for a few years, so it wasn't a surprise. The ferocity of my grief shook me, because the grief was not for my father. The grief was for me. For the father that I never had. For the longing for a father that my own father could never be. Then there was the guilt of not grieving for him as a proper Indian daughter ought to grieve. And underneath the grief was another uncomfortable emotion that I was trying not to feel. Loneliness. A feeling that I was entirely alone in the world. If I'm honest, the loneliness had started before my father's death. I'd feel this niggling in my stomach as I went about my busy day in London. I'd feel an intense aloneness when I woke up each morning. I took it to bed with me every night. Sometimes it felt like the loneliness slept on the other side of the bed with me. I didn't want to admit to feeling lonely. My life looked fantastic from the outside. Multi-award-winning podcaster, feminist speaker, Guardian writer, Spotify competition winner. I was on billboards, I was on panels, I was on the radio. I was featured in newspaper articles. I was living my feminist dream. And yet, I was the most lonesome I had ever been. There was a voice in the deepest recesses of my mind. A voice that had been saying unkind things to me my entire life. You are feeling lonely because of all those life choices you made. You went against everything that your culture taught you. And this is the price you have to pay. Loneliness. As a young Indian girl, I had been fed the same ideas as every other girl. Get married, have kids, get a respectable job, settle down, quietly do as you're told. Don't ask questions. Follow the rules and you'll be taken care of by parents, uncles, aunties, a husband, and in-laws. And if you don't, you're on your own. I had rejected every single soul-shrinking, self-limiting one of those beliefs. That voice in my head sighed. Look at where all your feministing has brought you. You are entirely alone. That snarky voice in my head wouldn't go away. So you thought you'd be the one woman from your culture who could do exactly as she pleased? Look at where it got you. Happy now? If you enjoyed that extract, you'll love my book, Bad Daughter. It's about my story going from the slums of Mumbai to the billboards of New York via a healing stopover in Kerala. It's about the pressure that all women face to be good girls. My readers love it. Here are some of the things they tell me. This is the best book I've ever read, says Hattie. This book made me cry, but also made my heart sore, says Archana. Your book made me think of my own inner voice and the stories I tell myself, says Caroline. So go to baddaughter.co.uk or type Bad Daughter on Amazon. Then there's that beautiful moment of emerging from loneliness. It's like you've been struggling under a heavy cloak and finally it slips off. The feeling of release, of unburdening is immense. There is lightness, so much lightness. You look around and the world is no longer separated from you by glass. In fact, the world is bright and beautiful. The colors are more intense. The sounds of conversation are clearer. The air is warmer and richer. You discover the joy of being seen, really seen. You experience the feeling of being heard, being understood. Emerging from a long period of loneliness is such a gift. Coming back and learning that the world was waiting for you the whole time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Masala Podcast. Come tell me about it. I'm on Instagram as Soul Sutras. I'm on TikTok as Masala Podcast. And if you loved it, share it. Share it with your mum, share it with your sisters, share it with your friends. I've also got a Bad Daughter course on my website on baddaughter.co.uk. I promise you it's fun. Imagine a week in lush tropical Kerala, eating gorgeous food, surrounded by the sisterhood. Welcome to the Anti-Retreat, where it's all real. Real spirituality, real sisterhood, real Kerala food, real visits to sacred temples. Your money supports local Kerala women, so you'll be making a real difference. This is all part of my retreat in February. Go check out baddaughter.co.uk/Kerala retreats.